To you guys, it's a couple hours of entertainment. To me, it's my life's work going through a meat grinder when I pleaded with them not to do it. That quote came from Rick Riordan, author of the Percy Jackson series, one of the most popular young adult franchises of all time. And looking into how the studio handled the movies, it's not hard to understand why. In the late 2000s, 20th Century Fox envisioned Percy Jackson as the next Harry Potter, and they were eager to replicate that success as quickly as possible. Fortunately for them, they had everything they needed to do so, because Riordan sold them the rights in 2004, a year before the first book was even released. Why a studio would invest in a series that hadn't even hit shelves? Risk management. Studios often get access to early manuscripts or pitches through agents and publishers, and it's a lot cheaper to buy in before a book becomes a bestseller. Plus, Riordan had a solid reputation. He was an established writer of adult mystery novels, but he couldn't have predicted just how big of a hit Percy Jackson would become, so he agreed to a deal that he'd later regret. Throughout the mid-2000s, the Percy Jackson series exploded in popularity, selling over 20 million copies and becoming a staple among younger readers around the world. By the time Riordan released the fifth and final novel on May 5th, 2009, the series had cemented itself as one of the defining book series of the decade. So that very same year, Fox began production on the first movie, Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief. Very early on, there were some glaring red flags. As Rick Riordan toured the world promoting his books, he had the chance to connect directly with his readers, and many of them were worried. They didn't want the studios to do to the Lightning Thief what had happened to so many other adaptations, drastically change the story. Before he even had a chance to read the script, Riordan had gotten word of some troubling news. The characters' ages would be changed from 12 to 17. Confused and frustrated, he wrote a letter to the producers. Many of these kids have read the books multiple times and know every detail. They are keenly aware that Percy is 12 in the first book. By making the characters 17, you've lost those kids as soon as they see the first movie trailer. I fear the movie will be dead on arrival with a 17-year-old lead. Aging up the characters wasn't just a creative betrayal, it was a financial misstep. Rick pointed out that the series was grounded on the premise that Percy must progress from age 12 to 16 throughout the timeline of the 5 books, and that this was the exact reason why Harry Potter was able to be so successful. By keeping the characters' ages true to the source material, Warner Bros. Built a loyal fan base, a consistent cast, and a billion-dollar franchise that spanned a decade. It just made sense. When Riordan looked at the books that had gotten film adaptations over the years, he noticed a direct correlation. The more faithful an adaptation was, the better it performed at the box office. But the studio didn't listen. They ignored his letter and kept moving forward with their own vision. Eventually, he received the script.
Then they sent me a script, like years later when they decided to do the first one, and I read the script. They said, "Oh, we totally want your input." So I was reading the script and I was like...
While he was mostly dissatisfied with what he read, there were a few parts he didn't mind. For one, he thought the opening scenes set up the world and the characters well. He thought the Minotaur sequence was nicely done, with a good showcase of how Percy's dyslexia works. He didn't mind the Las Vegas scenes or the entrance to the underworld. However, aside from those small positives, he didn't hold anything back in his next letter when he wrote, "The script as a whole is terrible," that it deviated so far from the novel that the story would be unrecognizable and fans would be outraged, that even without the context of the books, the story was weak in its own right. His words were scathing. He said he was plunged into despair at just how bad it was, and that he couldn't have done a better job sabotaging the project if he tried. There were 3 major fixes he felt the script needed. First was age appropriateness. The books were supposed to be family oriented. Riordan didn't didn't take issue with family movies being a little subversive here and there, but there was nothing fresh or interesting about throwing in explicit language for the sake of edginess. He felt that the movie's script didn't need crudeness to be funny and appease teen audiences. If it were his kids, he wouldn't even take them to see it. The next big issue was its structure. There were small things cut from the book that, while important, Riordan didn't have much of a problem with, but it was hard to understand why they would add plot lines and scenes completely foreign to the book, especially when they actively hurt the story. In particular, Persephone's pearls and Ares. In the novel, Percy has strong motivations: find his mom and find Hades, who supposedly has the lightning bolt. He can't fly because Zeus will zap him out of the sky. It's more than enough reason to go across the country and get to the underworld in Los Angeles. Yet, for whatever reason, the film created some superficial quest for pearls that have no basis in Greek mythology. It was a bizarre change that just wasn't necessary. The book ends in a climactic battle with Ares, the god of war, but the movie removed the character's inclusion entirely. Rick called its exclusion a crime, as this was the most cinematic scene in the book and Ares was the best adult role. Then there was the writing. Rick referred to the script as flat, tired, and uninspired. One of Percy's defining traits is his sense of humor, but in the draft he simply didn't have one. Grover was turned into just a horny comic relief character, and none of the relationships were naturally built up. Some authors sell the rights to their work and let the studio take it from there, but that wasn't the case here. Riordan gave them everything they needed to save the film and create a lucrative franchise. He detailed every major problem fans would have, went through each page of the script writing notes line by line, and even offered to personally revise the script himself. When adapting a novel, it would only make sense to listen to the well-reasoned advice of its creator. But once again, Rick Riordan was largely ignored, and he basically predicted exactly what would happen. You will lose the fans of the series 100%, but more importantly, the script will fail to impress even regular moviegoers who haven't read the book. The movie will become another statistic in a long line of failed movies badly adapted from children's books. The Lightning Thief released on February 12, 2010. From seemingly small changes like Annabeth's blonde hair being turned brunette, to major ones like scrapping key antagonists and aging the main characters into near adults. The movie felt like a betrayal of the source material. Without the depth of the books, for general audiences, it felt like a hollow Harry Potter knockoff that just happened to be centered around Greek mythology.
Because all that's going to happen is everyone is going to say, without any malice, hang on a minute, that's second-rate Harry Potter. That is all it is. It's the same thing. And you know what? It's second-rate Harry Potter.
After this, though, Rick simply didn't care. He decided to completely distance himself from the production of the second movie, even refusing to read the script. Trying to save his creation when he had zero control was exhausting, so instead of battling Hollywood again, he focused on what he did best: writing better stories. If Fox wanted to squander the potential of Percy Jackson, then so be it. He would let it crash and burn. And when The Sea of Monsters came out in 2013, that's more or less what happened. While it was slightly more faithful than the first film, it still suffered from many of the same issues: awkward dialogue, shallow characters, and a rushed plot. The movie made a modest profit, but it underperformed with both fans and critics. Some casual viewers enjoyed the movies for what they were, but it wasn't enough. Plans for a third film quietly disappeared, and the movie series was cancelled. Thankfully, Rick Riordan learned his lesson. In May 2020, he and his wife Becky announced a new adaptation, a live-action Percy Jackson TV series coming to Disney+. This time it would span 5 seasons, and most importantly, Rick would be heavily involved in the creative process from start to finish. This announcement had fans ecstatic that Percy Jackson would finally be getting the fully realized representation it deserved. While many of the original readers were now adults, a whole new generation generation of fans had discovered the books, and they were just as excited. It was formally greenlit in 2022, and the first season dropped in December of 2023.
It was the perfect wrap-up for season 1. It hit every point that I wanted it to hit, and it left me feeling very satisfied.
Pretty much everything we could have wanted from a season 1.
Dude, what a good first season, dude. Oh.
The first season wasn't perfect. Some viewers felt the pacing was rushed and that the stakes didn't always hit as hard as they could. But overall, the response was clear. This was a faithful adaptation and a massive improvement over the movies from a decade earlier. With season 2 already on the way, fans are hopeful the show will continue to build momentum and finally bring Rick Riordan's full vision to life. Because if the movies proved anything, it's that sometimes the author really does know best.